Christ. One time, a high school student stopped me and asked the question. She said, "Will I heaven?" And she asked this question because in her religion class at a Catholic high school, the teacher told them that in heaven we will see God. And so she kind of drew some conclusions, said, well, maybe that means that we won't see the other people that are there, like our family members. And this is an important question because you can see how it would be discouraging to think that in heaven we won't see each other again, but it certainly is true that we will. And we can get this sense also from today's gospel. The Sadducees asked Jesus this really far-fetched question and made up about this one woman having 7 husbands and whose wife will she be in the resurrection. And he says there will be no marriage in the life of the world to come. And so we can get this idea, will husbands and wives even know each other? Will they just be strangers to each other? And the answer to that is no, they will certainly know each other, but it won't be marriage as we know it. But what will heaven be like? It is important to acknowledge that we are unable to comprehend what heaven will be like in this life. The reason for this is that heaven so far exceeds all of the earthly experiences of delight and pleasure. Imagine if a man were to go to his horse, and the horse could understand him, and he says to him, "I'm going to fix you a feast." And the horse would think to himself, hay and other feed, because that's all he knows. And it's the same thing for us. We can only think in terms that we know, and so heaven so far exceeds that. It is certainly more than we can even think or imagine. That's what I try to explain to children. He said, whatever you think heaven is, it's definitely better than that. It has to be. And so we should consider that God is all-powerful, that he can do all things, and that he has promised to those who love him to make them happy. And so if he promises this, he can certainly do it. And when we speak of heaven as the fulfillment of our deepest desires, we really mean that there are two. The first source comes from the vision of God and the love that flows from that vision. Seeing, loving, and knowing God as he is constitutes the primary joy of the saints. And what exactly this is like, we cannot now know or understand or conceive. But we do know that many people have had a small foretaste of this joy. People like St. Paul, who speaks about being lifted up into heaven and experiencing that, or St. Teresa of Avila, who was given a vision of just the hands of the glorified Jesus, and she became enraptured by his beauty, or St. Thomas Aquinas, who had that vision of heaven and said that everything else is nothing compared to it, or St. Francis, who heard an angel play a single note on a violin and almost died of joy. All of these are but a faint glimmer of the full brightness of eternal glory. St. Paul says, "At present we see indistinctly as in a mirror, but then face to face. At present I know partially, then I shall know fully as I am fully known." And so this intense happiness will never grow old and will never become boring. It is the opposite of what happens with our earthly possessions. Say you buy a new car and you have this great excitement. Oh, this is my new car. I want to show everyone. I want to be very careful, park as far away as possible from everybody else. And over time, that starts to fade. The joy, the excitement, the desire that diminishes. But not so with eternal joy. The first moment of the vision of God lasts forever. It will be always new, and the joy that flows from that vision will never fade. And what we heard in the psalm today, "Lord, when your glory appears, my joy will be full." It will be full. We can't receive more. None can be taken away from us. And since God is rich in mercy, he adds even more than that to the happiness of heaven. So the second source of joy consists in being in the company and the mutual love of the glorified Christ, the saints, and the angels. In other words, heaven will be a society of friends, and we will experience the happiness of our relationships. We will meet each other and recognize each other and find joy in each other. And this is why the Bible compares heaven to a wedding feast or to the city of Jerusalem. It certainly has a communal nature to it. And it is important because it's very attractive to us and helps us to desire heaven. It is encouraging and it is satisfying to know that the relationships that we start in this life of our families and friends will somehow continue into eternity. And I try to think about this a lot and think to myself, I want to be in heaven. I want this person to be in heaven, or that person, or this whole group of people. I want all of you to be in heaven. And so my way of acting and speaking should try to make that more likely. And in heaven, we will see the effects of all of our actions and our words. We will see how our prayers and our words and actions affected other people, and how their words and their actions and their prayers affects us. And we will know that it was all worth it, all the sacrifices we made. While we are at it, it's worth mentioning a couple false ideas that some people have. And one of them is the people say, well, if this isn't in heaven, I don't want to go there. Whatever this is, it could be a number of different things. And the question is, well, where exactly do you want to go? Because in the end, there's finally only two destinations for us. And heaven is a place of supreme fulfillment. There will be, when we get there, we won't say, well, goodness, I wish I had this or that. We won't miss anything. There will be complete joy. And something else people say, they say this about hell. They say, well, at least I'll enjoy the company there, or those are my kind of people. And I know that this is probably a joke, but if there's any amount of truth to people saying that, it's very foolish and completely untrue. Instead of love, joy, and peace, there is hatred, sadness, and despair. And there is no communal joy, only communal misery. And unlike heaven, where every new soul increases the communal joy, in hell, every new soul increases the communal misery. So finally, one last story. I was listening one time to a talk this guy was giving, and he was a professor of philosophy, and he was saying that he was explaining to his son, who was making his first communion, he was trying to describe to him what heaven would be like. So he was probably using big words and trying too hard and trying to be too exact, kind of like I do it from time to time, or all the time. And so his son stopped him, and he said to him, Dad, all I know is if you and Mom are there, I'll be happy. And there's a lot of truth to that, right? There's a lot of truth to that. If you and Mom are there, I'll be happy. It'll be more than that, of course, but that will be a source of happiness, seeing everyone again. And so today we should consider that, and it should encourage us a little bit more to strive for that and to know the goodness of God and to seek His goodness day by day in our lives.